So good evening or good morning or early afternoon to everybody. My name is Tal Gibish and I'm the founder of a boutique relocation immigration agency here in Germany. I moved to Germany, Berlin, Germany 12 years ago. And this is basically bureaucracy, immigration, relocation is basically what I do in the last 8 years. Today, I'm very honored to host this webinar about life after SOFA for US military service members, contractors, dependents, and friends. And we're going to talk about, well, we have a full agenda for today, so let me just share my screen and we start. Can you see my screen? Okay. So, today, life after SOFA, returning to Germany without the military umbrella. A lot of people think that it's either impossible or challenging. Yes, it has the challenges, but again, it's not that bad as people might think. So what's on the agenda today? We're going to talk briefly about what SOFA covers, from legal protections to TRICARE, housing. We're going to talk about what changes without SOFA, the residence permits, bureaucracy, health insurance, taxes, and more. I'm going to bring some practical solutions about, we're going to talk about the residence permits, again, navigating healthcare and bureaucracy. And then we're going to talk about opportunities in civilian Germany, career path and education options. And then we're going to have Q&A. If you have any questions during the presentation or during the recruiter, Daniela Howe, that she's going to join us for the career part. If you have any questions, please write them down in the chat and we can go over them. We would try to answer as general as possible if you have general questions. And of course, we would try to see if it's possible to answer some specific questions if we see that they are for everyone. Okay, so what SOFA covers? Legal protections. So, of course, in the line of duty, the US government is basically taking over. Germany sometimes start the process like it was in 2023, 2014. But often Germany waives the right to be involved. Entry and exit. SOFA members are allowed to enter and exit and stay under SOFA status, which is, of course, a great benefit out of it. Tax and customs privileges. Exempt under SOFA status, you're exempt from local tax and you can import car without paying customs, which is amazing. Employment obviously is under US contract, either contractors or service members and their families. Dependents need specific and separate permission to work. Of course, you have the TRICARE, all the forms, and we're going to talk about that in the part of after SOFA actually, and specific schools that are very, helpful for the members. Driving and vehicles, SOFA driving license. We're gonna talk about converting it afterwards. And of course, you don't have to register your car in Germany, which is a big benefit. Housing can be on or off base, and it's not that bad as a market is in civilian Germany. And then we have civil claims and liability that the US government shares responsibility for most of the times. These are the main benefits of SOFA, so I'm sure you're all familiar with this. What changes without SOFA? So first of all, you can say bye-bye for the legal protections. You're responsible for the crimes that you commit. Hopefully that nobody would take any idea to commit a crime after the service. But then you have to face German law under everything that illegal that you do. Entry and exit. After you retire or not under a SOFA status anymore, you need residence permit for every family member. And we're gonna discuss this a little bit more when we talk about solutions. But it's something that it's not I'm coming in, I'm coming out, as much as I can just because I'm under SOFA. Tax and customs privilege. Well, that also goes bye-bye. You would have to be under German tax laws, and including your retirement pay, by the way, will be taxed. There's of course a difference with the treaty between the U.S. and Germany that you don't have double taxation, but manageable. And customs privileges, well, like everybody else. Um, Employment, schools, and TRICARE. So, of course, with the employment, you're not under a military contract anymore, or dependent contract, or whatever that is. So it's a little bit different. You have civil, and Daniela will talk about it in her part. And of course, we have the TRICARE that depends on what you have, what part of it, if it's for life or not. But then it's considered to be private insurance in Germany. We're going to discuss about this and more. Schools, of course, you would have to enter either the private or the public system in Germany. And of course, there's the international schools that also we can talk about. Driving vehicles, you would have to have a German driving license. With SOFA, driving license is no longer applicable, and with the original American driving license, or international driving license, you can travel only for the first 6 months after you arrive to Germany, after you registered in Germany, which you would also have to do. Vehicles, well, that also you have to register under German law. Military housing, unless you have some kind of benefit to stay off base with specific benefits or authorization. So you would have to start searching for homes. The market depends on the area that you want to live in. It's very different from what you know. And might I add, I know that the shutdown created some issues for some families with the rent. German housing and rent protection, I would call it, are very strict, and the person who rents usually has more rights than the owner of the apartment, just so you know that. Civil claims and liability, obviously, you're liable to everything that you do. For days, we have insurances, and we're going to talk about that in a moment. So let's start the practical solutions. So we this is one of my favorite parts of my job, which is residence permits. So you can have employment options, which is gainful employment, either blue card or a work permit, or freelancer or self-employed. They're not the same here. And you can have part-time job in different, there are Chansekarte, that is also, I'm a little bit against this Chansekarte. I think for Americans, there's better option then the Chansekarte, and of course you have for dependents, spouse, and children that are younger than 18. You can have family reunification residence permit. You can also turn to education options if it's language residence permit, language course, or any kind of college, university. There are also, we're going to talk about education options in a minute. German bureaucracy. Again, fun part of what I do. I know for a lot of people, bureaucracy is not the best thing in the world, which I get it. German bureaucracy means that you have to register what we call Anmeldung. It's local registration in your municipality. So you would have to register, and from that moment, you get a tax number, tax ID number for the tax authorities in Germany. Certain rules apply to you, like if you're more than 102 days in a year, so you have to pay tax in Germany if you're in Germany for that long, etc. I'm not going to start with all of that. You also have to pay TV tax, which is currently about 19 euros per month per apartment. And there are many fun other bureaucracies, like converting the driving license that you have. Again, it depends on your state. I don't know if you're aware, since you're under SOFA driving license. So there are certain states that are exempt from driving course, practical test, theory test, and eye exam. And there are some who are not, some partially. So it depends on the state that you have the driving license from. Navigating healthcare and other insurances. So Germany, I call it the kingdom of insurance. They have insurance for everything, not only for health insurance, also liability. They have for freelancers and self-employed people. They have sick leave insurance that you can have. You have burial insurance also in Germany. That's for another time. The healthcare, in just I'll try in a few words. It divides to the public system and the private system. TRICARE, for that matter, is considered to be private more than considered to be public. Americans have, yes, a little bit of issue with the health insurance going into the public system if they're not employees. So that depends. So health insurance relates also to your citizenship, to your employment status, and if you're studying in university or something like that, it depends on your age. Some that are not able to go to the public system, which in my opinion is better than the private, because it's regulated by the government, so they can't raise prices like they want. There's a certain threshold that the public health insurance companies have to maintain. Sometimes go a little bit later, and so it seems that that one public health insurance company is more expensive than the other, but it's not going to be like that forever because they have specific threshold that they can get to. Perks in the public health system, for example, ambulance ride is 10 euros. I think it's a little bit more in the US, if I'm not mistaken. The same with hospital. If you go to the hospital and you hospitalize for 3 days, let's say, it's 30 euros, 10 euros per day. Surgeries, a lot of things are covered by the public insurance. Medications, for example, chronic medications or others, mostly covered by the public insurance, and between 5 to 20 euros, the most that I had so far, per package. And then, of course, they do all the handling, the clinics with the health insurance company, unlike the private insurances that they usually reimburse you for the payment, and also the premium is it depends on your age, on pre-existing conditions, and a lot more. So this is something to consider. Above a certain threshold of income, you can choose between private or public. Otherwise, most likely you would go to the public. Opening bank account. It sounds very easy. There are some options like internet banks that can be easy. With traditional banks, as I call them, like Sparkasse, Deutsche Bank, Commerzbank, Volksbank, etc. It depends on what do you do mostly, your employment status. For example, Sparkasse takes open account for someone who has a residence permit or EU citizenship and employed. So you need a contract, and of course you have to be registered in Germany with the Anmeldung, with the local registration. So this is something. So it sounds very easy. What's the problem? I just walk in. They don't really take walk-in in most of the places, but you schedule a meeting and then you go to open a bank account, or you do it on their website and then go to a meeting to sign. We call it home search. As I said, it's a complicated market out there. Mostly in big cities like Munich, Frankfurt, Berlin, Hamburg. It's more complicated, but the point is that I'm sure that also Daniela would talk about in the career part, is how you present yourself, how you organize. It's all about the storytelling. So this is something that is really important to remember when you look for a home. And of course, it's possible to use professionals that would help you with this. So it is possible. Don't let people discourage you by hearing the horror stories. People usually, they have their horror stories because they're traumatized or they did things wrong. So if you do it in the right way, there's hope. Education opportunities in Germany for veterans and dependents. So, of course, I know that you heard about public universities and private universities. Public universities are funded by the state, by the government. And it means that you pay less tuition. I don't say free because it's not free. There are universities, public universities, that you pay 300, and there are public universities that you pay 1,000 per semester. There are some you can get scholarships if you need. Main thing in the public universities is that you have bachelor degree, at least in German. There are some public universities with English-speaking programs, but very few in Germany. Most of them do German-speaking programs, and with the bachelor degree, you usually have to go through an institute called UniAssist, that they actually make the selection before it even gets to the university. So it's a little bit complicated, which the private universities created the solution for that. A lot of the private universities in Germany have or only or most English-speaking programs. Some of them have German degrees or American degrees. It depends on the university. And private university, you also have a better chance to be under the GI Bill. So I'm pretty sure that I don't have to explain to you about the GI Bill after 9/11, but it's something that would make your life and your dependents' families that can benefit from this. So private universities have more options in Germany. There are not many options in Germany for private universities or universities under the GI Bill. Mostly there's like Touro University Berlin, for example, Hertie School in Frankfurt. There's a private university. There's University of Maryland that has online campus. But if you want kind of like a better environment and accepting environment with the English-speaking programs, usually you can find it in private universities. The payment per semester is usually per credit. Usually it's between 400 to 500 per one credit. And there are private universities where the degree, bachelor degree, is between 3 years, some 4 years, like in the US, if they're American universities mostly. And of course, there are MBAs and other programs that differ between 1 year to 3 even. And as I said, there are universities, private universities that have American or German degrees. But the most important thing is that all of these that I just mentioned are recognized for a status of student residence permit. Student residence permit you can get basically at any age, and most of them don't take me as a general rule. There's no restriction of age to the residence permit itself, but you are given the residence permit for the how long your degree is. If your degree is 4 years, you get for 4 years. If it's for 2 years, you get for 2 years. And for your spouse and minor children, they get dependents of the student residence permit. So it can be the spouse that studies or the veteran, it doesn't matter. But if it's under the GI Bill, so obviously much better. But that means that the one that doesn't study gets a full work and stay permit. So this is something that I highly recommend this option. And now I'm gonna give the stage to Daniela Howe, and please stay for the Q&A that we're gonna have later. I'll just stop sharing just a second. And Daniela.
Hi, everybody. Well, I'm going to start with thanking you all for your service. I'm very grateful for what you've done here in Germany. German is hard enough. I'm not ready to learn Russian. So thank you very, very much for your service. So the major challenges that you might have as a vet transitioning to not just finding a job here in Germany, but finding a job anywhere in the world is translating the terms, the titles that you use into civilian titles. So if you're using a technical military term, unfortunately, civilians won't necessarily understand that. So please go ahead, think and discuss with either your military buddies, or if you have a veterinary department that helps you transition into life, speak with recruiters, find out what terms are used in civilian life. Throughout your resume, you're going to need to be thinking about how to talk about this in a normal day-to-day job, and that's the place where most vets fall down. It's also worth learning what are the programs and software that are used in civilian world that are different to the military. That might be quite different. It might be very, very similar, but have an investigation into that to see what people are using on a day-to-day basis in those jobs. And then if you have the chance, try to learn some of them, or when you're speaking to recruiters, when you're speaking to hiring managers, explain to them that this software is equivalent to, or the back end of the software is the same as, because particularly those who are going to be using technical stuff on an everyday basis in a job, there may be differences. Okay. Regardless of whether you are the spouse coming in to look for work or the vet coming into Germany, it's very important to have the correct resume style. Um, you can use an international style. Keep it in a very plain document. Try to avoid templates. They can create havoc in ATS. Avoid graphics. Avoid these bar charts and star charts. You will see a lot of really bad advice coming forward about how to write a resume. Keeping it really simple as a template in a Word type document. Using your bold italic headlines and avoiding those columns helps you a lot. But here in Germany, there are a few particularities around the resume that don't happen in the US. Number one thing, photographs. It is typical to have a photograph at the top corner of your resume. And I know that that doesn't happen in many parts of the world, but Germany, the Netherlands, DACH region in general, Italy, France, Spain, they all have a photo. So a nice photograph, please, not something from a wedding, actually a good photograph where you've taken a headshot. You can do it with a mobile phone. You don't have to pay a lot of money, but a decent photograph. Having a little bit of information at the top really helps here in Germany to tell a recruiter what kind of visa you are here on, perhaps even what your language status in German is, because that can be very, very important. And it finishes off very oddly with a little signature, date, and place. So it's almost like verifying where you are. You might also have recruiters asking you for a lot more personal information than you are used to giving. So they might perhaps ask you for your marriage status. They might ask you how many children you have. This typically outside of Germany would be considered a bias, but here it is considered normal because it affects your tax status here in Germany. It affects your social security. So as Tal suggested, there is a lot more complex going behind the scenes. So it's very important that you are willing to share that information. It is not used to discriminate against you, but you will be required to give that over because you have to sign forms over for a thing called Kindergeld, for instance. This is money you get for having children here in Germany. And I don't mean birthing them here in Germany, just having a child with you in Germany, you get some money. So it's also key to know that there are limits here in Germany. You've probably experienced it already, that only 60% of the population can speak some English, and 40% speak none. There are going to be limits on the jobs that you can find in English. So you're going to have to target international companies, particularly centered around big centers like Berlin in particular, maybe Munich, Düsseldorf, some of the bigger Frankfurt cities. These then have more opportunities in English, and startups. Startups are a little bit more flexible on English speaking because they're slightly less traditional companies. If you try to apply for a really traditional German company, you are going to require a high level of German language. Typically, I would say for most jobs on a day-to-day basis, if you're in the sort of technical fields, you can get away with B1, but most people working here in Germany will require B2 German language and going upwards. So if you want to do something like marketing, where language is involved, and I'm just pulling random jobs out of the hat here, you're going to require something closer to C1 fluency, if not close to C2, so really working up the ranks. If you are lucky enough to get a job here in English, it is possible. you need to start working on getting that German language because you don't know how long that job will last. So you have maybe 3-4 years to really build up your German skills, ready if something should happen, layoffs do happen, ready to transition to the next job. So learning German language, very important for work, but also for social life, integration here in Germany. If you want to make friends, I've seen the world open up for me as my German has improved. So I really do recommend getting that German language. There are lots of online integration courses. There are also in-person integration courses, and volunteering is also a very, very useful way. When applying for jobs, you will be asked for certificates. They typically won't highlight this. They will have a resume, they will ask for a cover letter, and then they might say other documents. Having a merged PDF file of your key certificates, very, very useful. They are very pro-university degrees, and I appreciate not everybody's going to have that traditional university degree, but if you do, fantastic, use it. If you have something else, you might need to explain in your cover letter what your degree or what your qualification is equivalent to. You can also register degrees here in Germany from outside of Germany. So I had my degrees registered here with the German government so that they are recognized. Slightly expensive process, very useful for some jobs, and you can do that with American degrees as well. Track all of the applications you make, because at the end of the year, when you do a tax declaration here in Germany, which I do recommend, you can list every single job application that you've made, and you can then actually get money back for every application you made. It used to be that online applications were 50 cents, but they've taken that up. So you're getting back quite a substantial amount of money. Things you might get pushback on when transitioning from military life into civilian life, whether it's here or in the States, you are also going to get feedback from hiring managers that they're concerned that you may be too forthright in your communication, or that you may not be used to the speed of civilian life. So please, these are completely ridiculous arguments. You are perfectly capable of working in the workforce outside of the military, absolutely ready for it. But you need to have good arguments to explain how you are accustomed to it. Maybe you have experience before you join the military. Perhaps you have spent time volunteering outside the military, so you're used to civilian life. Or you can just explain, yes, I know it's going to be a different pace, but I'm prepared for it, and that gives me the opportunity to, whatever it is. So just be prepared for those kind of arguments. I do see some Q&As coming up.
Let's wait with the Q&A
Okay.
and done, and then we do all the
Sure.
Q&A together.
So I do actually see one that I'm going to answer anyway. So having a LinkedIn profile is exceptionally useful, but most German companies will also use Xing, X-I-N-G. So X-ray Indigo November Golf. You set up an identical profile there. It is the German equivalent of LinkedIn. It's not as easy to use, but you can build one there. It's free. Don't pay for paid versions of either. Frankly, it's not worth it. The other place to place a resume and to build a profile is Stepstone. So these are the three biggies. You can also do a thing called a Boolean search. You can create one. It is a search term string about where you are, what you're looking for, a job search, and you can set that up to do, you can do that once a week, and that gives you all the jobs that are not advertised on those two platforms. that gives you also a chance to pick up the job adverts that Zing and LinkedIn are not actively promoting to you for whatever reason. So you can find those, you can then apply to them. Companies do like you applying on their website. Other places to apply to are companies you're using. So if you are, using a service, go on their website, see what jobs they have open. You're going to have experience as a customer. They might be interested in you working for them. So think about day to day, which companies you're using, and apply. Some places are a little bit more flexible on language in terms of their need is very, very high. So if you have a medical background, working in some kind of nursing field as an assistant nurse, there is huge shortage there, and it's a really fast way to up your language skill. Other areas that always, they're not glamorous jobs that anybody is seeking out, but there's always shortages in food and beverage, supermarkets, and Amazon centers, things like that. They're always hiring English speakers because they know once you're working in that environment, you will very quickly pick up German. You will be able to do the job. Pay is abysmal, I won't joke, but it gets you in through the door into a job, especially when you're on the first rung. If you've got a visa that allows you to do that kind of salary, it is a possibility. So that might be available for spouses rather than the main person coming in. So yes, I think I've covered everything that I wanted to cover. So we can go forward with some questions.
Yes. So actually, I got already questions by email before the webinar, but I think
Sure.
that we have a few here. I actually, when you mentioned Kindergeld, and this is something very important. So we had a question about the Kindergeld. So is the Kindergeld paid out by household or to each earning individual? Let me say Kindergeld is a child allowance for each child, and currently it's about 250 euros per month. So how many kids you have? It's usually by the age of 21 or 25 of the child. So you get 250 currently for each child every month. So it doesn't matter. It's not for actually for the parents, it's for the children. There are specific restrictions to it. So do this process with someone who's professional about that, so you can maximize your chances to get the Kindergeld as you should. Of course, we offer this service as well. One question before we go to a few work questions that is very important in here, and thank you for your service. How does 100% disability retirement get handled for taxation? So in the US, you don't pay taxes. What I can say, I'm not a tax expert. In any tax question, you should ask a tax consultant, advisor, or what we call Steuerberater, accountant. But in the case of disability, I will send you by email, everybody, by email, the name of accredited claims representative that is exactly, that's what he does for free. So he actually volunteered to do this. He's doing this for many years, and he can help with also the taxation of questions and with everything that relates to getting disability benefits and how to manage this this area. So he's very good, and you're going to get his website link in the post-webinar email. So this is really important. Of course, you talked about the search app that you recommend for search. So we have these three. I'm going to put the links to Stepstone, Zing, and LinkedIn that I'm pretty sure that everybody knows. But you know, Daniela's LinkedIn page is going to be there, so from there you can go to the rest of LinkedIn. Um, Now, maybe that's a question that we both can answer actually. Are there any important things to know for entrepreneurs, or if you want to start a business? Uh, let's take it you first, and then, I would answer mine.
Sure. So, first thing, I mean, like anywhere in the world, do your research. Um, because it can get pretty expensive very quickly as a self-employed person here in Germany. There are a couple of different ways to go about it, but you need to think about what type of job you're doing. Are you offering a service? Are you selling something? Do you need to go on site? Because, for instance, I'm considered a freelancer, so the way I'm registered is different to somebody who sells goods. And then Tal herself has set up a company that is completely different, has a completely different setup. Whatever happens here in Germany, you're going to pay tax. You are always going to pay tax. The difference the big difference between being employed and unemployed is you really have to sort out your own social security if you're self-employed, where if you're employed, some of it is set up through the company and you have some options around that. Tal has briefed on that. I have experience and knowledge about that. Please, just reach out to us and we'll advise you. But in terms of once you become self-employed, you have to find your own health insurance. You're going to have to set up your own pension. You're going to need to think about what happens if you get sick and you can't work, all these little bits and pieces. Tax-wise, if you're a freelancer and you're under a certain amount, you don't have to add VAT to each invoice. If you're going over that amount, you have to start charging VAT, and 4 times a year you need to give a VAT payment and declaration, and it's based on your estimated, and if you are not lucky enough to achieve that, you have to wait for a refund. Can get quite tricky. Gewerbe, which is the person selling stuff, even more complicated. So in that case, you definitely need to have yourself a tax advisor, a Steuerberater, Steuerberaterin. These people are there to save you getting onto the wrong side of a very efficient system. What I would say is you really do need to research your market. Some people are very successful and you might have 2 or 3 successful months and then you might crash out and burn for 3 to 5, maybe 6 months. So you need to have a cushion there. So perhaps if you are a spouse, this might be an option if your partner is in full-time employment. You do need to, whatever you do, if you're a freelancer here in Germany, you have to have more than one client and you have to be actively looking for more if you only have one. So there is a thing called false self-employment where people think they can come here, be a Freiberufer, a freelancer, and work for their old employer back in America or wherever. Germany is not stupid. They will catch you and they will hammer you for this. But your company can be registered here as a foreign employer, and that is a very different setup. They pay for your social security here in Germany, they pay your salary, everything is done, or you can have an employer of record, an EOR. There are special companies like Deal and a couple of others that set up for your company from back home.
That's a topic for a
That's a
whole
whole nother
whole
one.
video. Yeah.
But be careful, don't
Yeah.
try to think that you can get around it.
Okay.
But yeah, I hope that
Let
answered the
me add
question. Yeah.
the residence permit
Mm,
perspective. As I said before, there's a freelancer residence permit and self-employed. The main difference is if you're self-employed, you intend to start a company and employ people. Usually, not always, but you have to show business plan, which is pretty much complicated, and you have to show your benefit that you're going to bring for the local economy. If you're in Bavaria, for example, in Bayern, so they want to see your contribution, your future contribution to Bayern, not to Germany. So you have to know exactly, and yes, of course, to add to what Daniela said, is you have to do a lot of market research also in your field, but also on what type of company to start, because you can be a freelancer and you can be a small owner of business. You can own the 100% shares of your company, and then you get a payslip, but you're not getting any social security rights that other employees get. So your employees get great health insurance taken from their salary, but you don't, believe me. So this is really complicated, and you have to handle this very well. We're going to try to answer, because we do get more and more questions, so we try to make it short answers. So about retirees. First of all, I would like to actually add to the income threshold for the individuals or for household. I saw that you answered 78K from next year. Individuals, I would be happy if you can explain a little bit about this in very short.
Okay, so private health insurance, it's interesting. It's you and I have a very different opinion on it because I actually worked in healthcare here in Germany. I see how people are treated in the public health and I see how they're treated in the private. Private care is far better. It depends on your insurer as to how prices go up. Prices are continuing to go up in the public sector as well. But there is a bigger safety net in the public system if things really go wrong. Within the private health insurance, you need to be earning, an individual in the family needs to be earning 78,000 to qualify for health insurance. At that point, they can then get it only for themselves if their spouse is also working, and their insurance might also then include children. They can include up to 3 children and it won't increase the cost. If your spouse is not working, it then gets more expensive because you're insuring 2 people on 1 income. So that is where it gets very, very tricky. So if you've got both partners working, one is in the social security system because they're below 78,000, the other is above 78,000, then it's worth looking at. But yeah,
in the public, in the public, if you work and your spouse or doesn't or earn less than 520 euros per month, then you get family coverage of the spouse who doesn't work. And then when the spouse starts working or earns more than 520, then they go out, basically they break free from the family insurance, which is one of the benefits of the public system, I have to say.
yeah.
I see here people asking about the retirement, which is very important, and thank you very much for telling me, because when I talked about the residence permits, there's one that I actually forgot to mention, and it's really important, and I have it with many people who retire from US Army. So yes, there is a retirement visa, a residence permit. It doesn't call retirement residence permit because Germany doesn't want to phrase it as people can retire in Germany. It's called other. And this is something very specific. It's federal one. They have specific requirements. You don't have to be at retirement age, let's call it like that. It's for various options, and just the requirements are different, mainly to show that you have steady income or a lot of money, to if you don't have any monthly income, which is pension or but it has to be in a certain amount that I guide through the people that I work with. And you should have health insurance that would answer all the requirements that the government demands. And this can be a little bit expensive, but the federal health insurance, the American federal health insurance, has its benefit with for this specific residence permit. So it really depends on what health insurance do you have, what kind of health insurance can you do if you don't have a suitable one. So this is definitely possible, and we do it all over Germany actually because it's federal. So um, it's very popular, by the way. So we definitely do this. A question that I see about my parents were Germans, and I plan to apply for citizenship through descendant. Is there anyone service that can help me with that process? So we don't do it specifically, the citizenship by descendant, but we do work with a law firm that specializes in this. So definitely we would be happy to, you can write us and we can refer you to the lawyers. Sometimes it's good that lawyers handle this because it's very complicated and it needs someone extremely lawyerish to do this. And I want to add for citizenship, for regular citizenship, let's say, and naturalization. So this is different. This we actually provide this service under the supervision of a lawyer, of course, by law, but this is different. And I have a lot of people that come to me and say, okay, I want this residence permit in order to gain citizenship in 3 years, in 5 years, in etc., etc. So laws change it all the time. Just now, the government, not government, the Bundestag voted for canceling the fast track of the citizenship that you had after 3 years with C1 German level. Now they canceled it. It's not possible anymore. We go back to 5 years and more, depends, and it's going to change. And not, but 3 years track for the married to German citizens still there. So if you're married to a German or you have children with German citizenship, it is possible to ask for, if you obviously you fulfill all the requirements, all they want, and you can apply after 3 years. So this is possible. And another addition, if we talk about children with German citizenship, if you ask for a residence permit as a parent to German citizens, minor, of course, then you can get to the period until they're 18. So this is something that is really important. Someone, yeah. Yes, the retirement permit, I see that it was pretty easy to get. It's a common statement about a lot of things, and it really depends on where you live, what immigration office you go to, and who is the caseworker, and how hard they are and demanding. So it can be easy, yes, it can be also complex. A lot, it depends on how you prepare yourself, how you prepare your application. If it's full, sometimes you get, kind of like an email, please specify this and this and this. So not always it's easy. So if it's easy for someone, it doesn't mean that for another one it would be the same. So it's always good to be prepared. Let me see if we have questions that we missed. How hard it is to get medical insurance if you are over 65 and retired. It's not easy. There are specific health insurance companies that deal with it, not so much German companies, but to give international. So you have the option. If you're not employed, so public is probably not the option for you. If you have EU citizenship or German citizenship, yes, you can go into the public health insurance. It's tricky. I guide the people that, my clients, how to do this. So it is possible, but it's tricky. Yes. Sorry. Okay. I'm a photographer who sells print. Is that freelancing thing? Daniela.
No, that's if you're selling stuff, it's Gewerbe. So that is you're going to have to register with your city. You're also going to have to get a tax number from the Steuer people, the finance department. So you are selling something that is no longer a service. Even if it's a digital product, you are still selling something. So please note this doesn't cover selling your second-hand items. So if you have a designer jacket that you have in your closet and you need to get rid of, it's a once-off sell. It's fine. People sell stuff on eBay, Kleinanzeigen, which is the small stuff, all the time, but it's not their business. When it becomes a business is when you're going over a certain threshold on regularity as well. The finance amp will then require you to pay. If you're doing a service, you don't go to a location or you don't have a special setup to do it. You're just working from your office at home. I have a spare room that I work from. I'm here there now. I never go in person to somebody to do the job. I only give them information and advise them. It's their decision to do with the information I give them as what they want. Hence, I am a freelancer. It's the same as if I'm working, if a company comes to me asking me to find them people to fill a job, I'm not going to them in person. I'm supplying them with a number of resumes and potential candidates. It's up to that company to decide what to do with it, but it is just information. It's not a product. So there is that difference.
Okay, I think we do have more questions, but we run out of time. So I want to, first of all, thank you all for attending, and thank you, Daniela, for joining us. In the post-webinar, of course, we would be post-webinar email. You're going to get the links of our services, especially for veterans. Follow us on social media. And I hope that you found this webinar informative. There's going to be a recording that's going to be sent to you by email, the link, but also you can check our YouTube channel. There are also some things that you might find interesting there already. And I hope that even though there's a shutdown, so you're still going to stay optimistic and see your future in Germany. And we don't have shutdowns. So, it's a good start. So thank you, everyone, and have a great rest of the weekend. Bye-bye.